Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the changes coming to role actions in Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Shadowbringers. This information is coming to you from the recent North America media tour that I attended. As such, all this information, it's still in development, it's still subject to change. We'll put a disclaimer at the bottom of the video, and let's get started. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Really? A whole separate video just for role actions? I figured I was going to be repeating myself and it was going to add like an extra minute onto pretty much any of the 17 job videos I had to do, so why not make it its own separate video and also add to the description of the video timestamps for each role. So if you're looking for your role, just scroll down and you should find it. So let's get started with the tank role actions. I figure they have the most, so we'll start with them. Rampart is essentially the same, 20% less damage taken for 20 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. Low Blow, still a 5-second stun, still a 25-second cooldown. Provoke got changed a little bit, but only for the better. It now not only places you at the top of the enmity list, but you also gain extra enmity when you use it. I guess that's to make tank swaps a little easier, not that they were hard in the first place. Provoke sits on a 30-second cooldown. Interject is up next, and they basically changed the wording, but it works pretty much the same. Before it was a silence, and now it's an interrupt, and yes, I am using air quotes that you can't see. If an ability is interruptible, it'll glow and be bolded, and when you actually interrupt it, it'll say interrupted at the top of the screen. So that sits on a 30-second cooldown, and you and the ranged DPS will be taking care of that. Reprisal is pretty much the same. It lowers the enemy's damage by 10% for 5 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. Most people use it for big raid-wide damage, or sometimes for tank busters if need be. Shirk is also still around, and that still diverts 25% of your enmity to a target party member on a 2-minute cooldown. The final role action is Arm's Length. It still nullifies knockbacks and draw-ins for 6 seconds, but also if an enemy attacks you during the 6 seconds, they have a 20% chance to have their attack speed slowed by 20%. That's not really going to come in handy for anything outside of like fighting mobs in the open world or maybe trash, but it's pretty nice on trash, so you can use it kind of as a defensive cooldown as well. Now, Arm's Length sits on a lengthy 120-second cooldown, which is significantly longer than it was in the previous expansion, and that is going to be consistent when we talk about that action on the other jobs. Now, tanks no doubt noticed that they lost quite a few role actions that they had before. Anticipation is gone, Convalescence is gone, Awareness is gone, and Ultimatum is gone. So you're just going to have to live without those and work with the 7 that you got. Next up, we have the healer role actions, and you're definitely going to notice some big differences in these. You still have Surecast, you still have Swiftcast, and they still function about the same. Surecast has had its cooldown reduced to 120 seconds, which shouldn't be a surprise after Arm's Length. Rescue, still around, still does the same thing. I'm still doomed. Asuna is still around, still does the same thing. Lucid Dreaming is still around, still does the same thing. The one that's new to role actions is Repose, which used to be the White Mage Sleep. Now all the healers have it. I'm not complaining, I've found uses for Repose on occasion, but it was a weird addition to the healer role actions. Of course, that does mean about 5 actions were removed from healer role actions in the process. Cleric Stance, Break, Protect, Eye for an Eye, and Largest are all gone. Next up, we have the melee role actions, and these are almost all identical, but one of them underwent some pretty nice changes. Arm's Length got a nerf, of course. It's the same as the tank one with the 120-second cooldown. Bloodbath still converts a portion of physical damage dealt to HP for 20 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. Feint still lowers the target's strength and dexterity by 10% for 10 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. Leg Sweep, still that 3-second stun, 40-second cooldown. Second Wind restores your own HP, flat potency, scales with attack power, 2-minute cooldown. However, the final one is True North, and this got 2 pretty nice buffs. For one, it still nullifies all the action direction requirements like it did before for 10 seconds. However, its charge time is only 45 seconds, and yes, True North does store up to 2 charges. I am a huge fan of that change because sometimes you can't hit positionals for longer than the 10 seconds. So on top of getting them more frequently in the fight, 15 seconds more frequently per minute, you can also store up to 2 of them. I love it, I love it, I love it. Of course, there are some pretty noticeable actions that are gone. Because TP is gone, Goad is gone. Crutch is also gone, very few people were using that one. Invigorate also gone because TP is gone. But most importantly, Diversion is gone. I guess with the changes to tanks and the way Enmity is going to be working in the expansion, you know, tank stance only being Enmity, I guess it's not too surprising to see Diversion go because realistically, shouldn't have any issues with Enmity in this expansion. And also Ninja lost Shadewalker and Smokescreen, so again, no surprise. Next up, we have the ranged physical roll actions, and these were probably the most surprising to me. I mean, I totally expected some things to disappear from this list, but some of the things on it I didn't expect to stay. And those things go by the name of foot graze, head graze, and leg graze. That's the 10-second bind on foot graze, the interrupt, which I guess I technically did expect to see stay. It's now an interrupt instead of a silence on head graze, and then leg graze is that 40% heavy effect. I mean, yeah, like I said, head graze I expected, but foot graze and leg graze, I mean, they have uses, but were they really worth keeping around for a roll action? Maybe they know something I don't. Second Wind is still around for the self-heal, and Peloton is still around for the AoE movement speed increase out of combat. The final roll action is one ranged physical totally deserved, and that's arm's length. That's right, tanks, ranged physical, and melee all have this now, and while it sits on that 120-second cooldown, ranged weren't able to do this at all before, so I'd say they'll take it. Now, of the skills I didn't expect to survive, Tactician and Invigorate were definitely at the top of the list, but I fully expected Palisade and Refresh to stay because the ranged physical role has always been about more supportive tools, so having Refresh and having Palisade were things that I definitely expected to stay. I guess they don't want parties to feel like they absolutely need the Bard or the Machinist or the Dancer just for those two things in particular, and they want to put more of that responsibility on the tanks and the healers. And the final one is the shortest one, in that of the magical DPS roll actions. They only have 4, and 3 of them we've already talked about. Lucid Dreaming, Surecast, and Swiftcast are all the same as they were before. They also kept Addle, which they had before, which reduces the target's intelligence and mind by 10% for 10 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. However, there are quite a few things that are gone. Break, Drain, Diversion, Mana Shift, and APOC, as well as Erase. Pretty much over half of the ones I had before are all gone. I had forgotten about some of them, to be honest. Break and Drain, not too surprising. Diversion, again, what we said about the enmity still applies. Mana Shift, I was again kind of surprised, but again, I feel like they're trying to put the emphasis on controlling your MP and controlling the damage you take, at least for the most part. They're trying to put that on the healers and the tanks, and I guess I get it, because it would also make sense for why APOC is gone. And Erase, I could think of 1 or 2 times where I used Erase, and it was okay for those times, but otherwise, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's it. That's all the roll actions and their changes going into 5.0. You better get used to these skills, and tanks, I am really sorry to see that you guys got 7. This whole thing is kind of how I figured roll actions probably would work anyway, if they kept the system at all, because all tanks need provoke, and all tanks probably want a defensive cooldown, and there were just things that were so universal across the role that did it really make sense if you didn't have these actions. Some of them, yeah, I could probably live without, but for the most part, this is how I kind of expected things to go. Let me know what you think about the roll actions and the changes to it in 5.0 in the comment section of the video below. Now that you know what the roll actions are, if you haven't seen them already, be sure to check out all the job-related videos that I have been posting today because, well, it's taken a lot of time and I'm at my wit's end as I'm recording this one, so please go enjoy that content. Anyway, I will see you all in the next video, and until then, take care.